Hey guys, so I'm going to go through last week's trading. So we're going to start on gold, then I'll go through NAS as always. So let's start on gold. Let's go to Monday, start on the 4-hour time frame. Let's just first find Monday. So this was Monday. Oops, this was Monday. Sorry, let me just remove this. So this was Monday, January 5. Yes. Okay. So Monday, basically we just look to see if price is bullish or bearish, right? So price is bullish on the 4-hour time frame. So now I drop down to the 1 hour. And then price is bullish on the 1 hour, right? So prior to the New York session, this is what I was looking at. This was 7 o'clock. This was the 7 o'clock candle, right? So this was the level I was looking to enter from, right? So this is basically the level I was looking to enter from. Now I want to show you an example for myself personally where you can have all the confluences and still lose, which is part of the game. But this is only for myself because I use a tight stop loss. I only use 3 points. So I'm just going to show you. So you have an EG buy zone. You have a break and retest. This is a potential higher low to put in a new higher high, right? So you have a lot of confluences going for you. And then basically this is where I set my pending order at this level here. So this is 439.980, 439. My stop losses are always three points when I trade gold. And then obviously this took me out and then continued to go up. In this scenario, there's nothing I could have done because you can see price didn't respect this level. It broke it, but it still continued to go up. I would have probably waited for a 5-minute setup if I wanted to continue the trade. So I'll just show you. But I remember this this day. I didn't do anything. I just, it marked it as no valid trade. If I were to look at the next trade, I would look for seeing what the current price is doing. So this would have been my next level, right? Obviously, price never came back down here. This is a QMR, low, high, low, low, high, high. But price was in a lot of momentum, so I didn't get that. So it is what it is. There's nothing you can do. So but I'm following my rules. I'm following the process. I'm not going to change my stop loss just because just because it was too tight. I'm going to keep everything the way it is. You guys can, determine what you want to do for yourselves. But you can just see basically you have an EG. It's a potential new higher low. And it's a great setup, right? Because the 4 hour is bullish and the 1 hour is bullish. So, everything is good. So, yeah, let's go to the 4 hour. Let's go to Tuesday now. Okay, so Tuesday comes around. So after that day, I had a break, retest. I'm seeing price come up here, putting a potential higher low to go high. So I'm looking for buys, basically. I just need to know on the 4 hour if I'm buying or selling. That's all I look for is, if I'm buying or selling. So on Tuesday, I'm buying. So I go to the 1 hour. I need to see what the 1 hour looks like. So this was Tuesday. So for the 1 hour, I always look at structure. So I always mark the highest point before New York. So this is the highest point. And then this would be the higher low. So prior to the New York session, I noticed that price is bearish on the 1 hour. So in order for me to trade this, I need it to shift on the 30 or 15. So I go down to the 30, right? And so price would need to shift here because this is now the lower high and this is the lower low. I'll show you. All right, so I can't trade this unless price shifts. So now I need to go to the 15 because maybe I can get an earlier entry on the 15. 15 is the same exact level, right? So as soon as this candle body closed above this level, that confirmed the shift of structure. So then what happens is immediately this becomes the higher high, right? And this becomes the higher low. And now this becomes the setup, which is a break and retest. So this was the entry point here, break and retest. And then obviously, you set your stop losses accordingly, but this was the entry. So this was a good trade, right? So all I did was wait for price to shift back to being bullish, and it did. Once it body closed above this level, and then this became the new higher high, higher low, and then price went up, right? So hope that makes sense. Pretty straightforward. So let me just delete all this now. Sorry. So Tuesday was a good trade as well. Let's go to Wednesday. Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday I'm following structure. Personally, I was looking for buys because this is the last lower high point. This is the lower high. Higher low, and this is the higher high. So I was looking for buys here personally. So then I go to the 1 hour. So I noticed that on the 1 hour price is bearish, right? So price is bearish. So I would need price to shift bullish in order to buy. So I go to the 30 and I just kind of see where price is at, right? So pretty much the same level until price breaks. See the 15. And then the 15, you notice that this was the last, lower high. This was the lower low. Price shifted here, but there was no setup. So, and it was already almost outside of my session time, which is 10 o'clock. So there was no trade this day. So, but what I was waiting for was the shift of structure. And then after I get the shift of structure, there needs to be a setup, right? So we got the shift of structure here, but there was no setup here. So it just didn't make any sense for me to trade. So that day there was nothing. So there's nothing I can do. So that was Wednesday. So then I go to Thursday. So now Thursday is officially bearish because it broke this level of support here, which was the higher low, right? So now I'm looking for sells. I'm looking for sells on Thursday. I'm looking for sells personally because I'm just following the flow. So I need to see the 1 hour. 1 hour is clearly bearish. So I have the lower high and I have a lower low. And now I need to find if there's a setup. I don't see anything obvious on the 30-minute time frame. So I drop down to the 15. And then for me, this is where I noticed that price, you may not be able to recognize it, but I did. I noticed this QMR. This is a kind of like, it's not the best QMR, but it's still valid. Right? So you have the high, low, higher high, lower low, and price. I noticed that price never touched this level. It came really close. So this is my sell point. So price came here and then went down, but obviously price reversed and went back up. But we don't predict that. We just follow basically our process. So that was the level I looked to sell at because of that QMR. So I hope that makes sense. If that wasn't clear, that wasn't obvious, then it doesn't matter. You just basically mark it as no trade because it has to be obvious to you, right? If it's not obvious to you, then just it's okay to wait. It's okay to miss trades. Like missing trades is part of respecting your plan because you only want to trade things that are obvious to you and that make sense. You don't want to have confusion when you're trading. And if you have to second guess it, then I suggest don't trade because it should be obvious. You should have a first reaction like, okay, that looks like a QMR. As soon as you say that looks like a QMR, then you start looking for confluences. Okay, well, is there an EG zone here? Okay, I found an EG sell zone. Okay, is this a potential lower high? So I have the lower low, lower high, lower low, and yes, obviously I can't see this. This is all now in hindsight, but it did have a potential lower high area at the time I was watching this. So those were three confluences for me. So basically, and it was clearly trending, right? So at the moment it was clearly trending. So this is pretty clean trending. So I expect price to get back up there. I have no idea, but I just got to take the trade based on my rules and plan. I can't pick and choose because then that skews the results, right? So that was that. Now Friday, I didn't trade Friday because Friday was NFP. So I don't trade I don't trade NFP. I just completely ignored that day, so I'm not even going to go into it because I don't think it's worth it. So now I go to NAS. Now we go to NAS. We go to Monday, same thing. NAS had a lot of opportunities. Now, when you trade NAS, you need to trade NAS differently than gold because NAS, it follows the CMP mostly and the current leg, like the current leg of the current, what price is currently doing. You can't use all the time structure. Like I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Like if you look at price right now, you'll notice that you have a lower high, lower low. Oops, right? Now, I noticed that this was a QMR within here, so I noticed that too. But I'm paying attention to what price is currently doing right here in this leg, and it's pulling back. So personally, I was looking for buys until it got up to that area. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'll go to the 1 hour time frame, right? So until price got to that QMR level up here, I was looking for buys, right? So this is the area I was looking for buys, seeing if there's any setups. Nothing on the 1 hour, so I dropped down to the 30. See price is trending up, right? Nothing on the 30. I dropped down to the 15. And then what do I notice? QMR, right? So as always, I mark the level and I mark the apex. Since this is on the 15, I go to the 5 minute to refine. If I find it on the 15 minute, I'll always refine it to the 5 minute because I always want to get the best price level for NAS. So this, because I keep the apex there because that was the apex originally, but I moved this down here. This would be the QMR level I would use. And then you can see price tapped and went up, right? So you have the low, high, lower low, higher high, price came back up and then tapped it and then went up, right? So this was a great day. It was a good trade setup. Now the QMR did work. I'm just going to go back to the 1 hour, but I'm just going to show you why that trade was ignored. Because it was outside session time. QMR came around 11 o'clock, so it made no sense. So since price didn't reach this level yet, the buys were still valid because if price had already reached this level here and I was looking to buy, the trade would become invalid because there would be a sharp reaction from this level and probably take me out, right? So since price didn't reach the QMR, the buy was valid. I hope that makes sense. So let's go now to Tuesday. Just delete all this stuff. So Tuesday, as I said, you want to focus on the CMP, right? So what the CMP is doing, it's creating bullish structure. So it respect to this level of support. So I'm looking for buys. I go to the 1 hour. I need to see what the 1 hour is doing. So I noticed that price is bullish on the 1 hour. This is the higher high. This was the higher low. So now I need to find a setup within here to buy. So let me check. Go down to 30. I don't notice anything for myself personally on the 30. Go to the 15. This is what I noticed, price creating structure. So I had this level here. Break and retest, basically, right? So this is a break and retest. So you have break and retest level. You have an EG buy zone. And then you have obviously prices trending up. And then you have a potential higher high, higher low, higher high, and then it's a higher low area. So this is a high confluence area. And then price obviously went up. So this was a trade for Tuesday. If you didn't get this trade, let's just say it didn't tap you in, you could go down to the 5 minute and see if there was any new structure created here. That's what I would do if I missed this trade here. If I missed it or if I get stopped out, I would wait for a new setup on the 5 minute time frame, continuing with the flow as long as it made sense. So I'll just show you what I'm talking about. So let's just say I missed that trade for whatever reason. You'll notice that price created a QMR, right? So you have the low, high, lower, low, higher, high, and then price came up and tapped, right? So you had two opportunities to get into a trade on, what was this, Tuesday. So you could have taken this QMR right here. This is absolutely perfectly valid. This is a great trade. If you didn't see the 15-minute this break and retest here. Now, as far as which level I would take, I forgot to mention, sorry. You always want to go up in time frames. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I go up to the 30-minute, I'll just show you what I'm talking about. You notice that this level is all the way up here, and then the 30-minute is all the way down here, right? So I'm always going to take the better price level. So this level gets deleted, and this would be the level I would focus on. And then I go to the 1 hour just to confirm and see if that makes sense. And then you'll notice it's an OHLC level too, right? Yeah, so that's how you know to pick the right levels most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. That's how you pick the correct level, is you look for the refinement and you look for the overlap of the level. So I hope that makes sense. Just to repeat, right? So say you had marked this break and retest, right? But you didn't know which level to enter from. Just go up one time frame and see what makes sense. And if you look at this, and if you were to enter, I'll put on a line chart, right? What makes the most sense to enter from? 1 or 2, right? Obviously two, right? So, oops, just delete this. Yeah, so this would be the entry. This would be the level to enter from. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's go to Wednesday. Back to the 4 hour. Wednesday was a good day as well. Clearly, its price is putting in a potential higher low. So obviously, we're going to be looking for buys. So I go to the 1 hour. What's the 1 hour? 1 hour is clearly bullish. What do I notice prior to the New York session? New York session, by the way, I trade NAS, in case you're wondering, from 9 to 10. And I trade gold from 8 to 9. Just so you're aware. So I don't start looking at NAS until it's around like 8:45, 8:50. I wait for basically the 8 o'clock candle to close, and then I start looking for setups, as not closed, but as it's almost closed. So basically I trade NAS from 9 to 10 is what I'm trying to say. So I noticed this gave me a rally-based rally. So that's already a buy setup right there. And it's the apex of this level here. So I go to the 15 just to kind of show you. And obviously this makes sense. I would use this level too. Price, I don't know if it reached that originally, but just look at the confluence, right? You have an EG buy zone. What do you have? You have the higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and then price goes up, right? So you have a lot of confluences. Things make sense. Obviously, you have a break of structure here, right? So yeah, so that was a pretty simple, easy day. That was Wednesday. So let's try Thursday, see what happened on Thursday. So far, NAS has been given the most setups this whole week. Gold only had 2 good setups for myself in my process. So here's another perfect example. Price is bearish. I'm looking for sells, QMR level. Go to the 1 hour. Take a look and see what we got. Price is bearish on the 1 hour. Now price never came here. This was my first game plan. I was expecting price to come here, but I'm also paying attention to what the current price is doing, because you got to pay attention to CMP, right? So what I noticed prior to the New York session, I'm going to keep that level here because this is the QMR, and I noticed that price had a roadblock here, right? I didn't enter at this level, but I just noticed it, that the 8 o'clock candle respected it, right? So once I saw this, I start dropping down time frames just to see if there's anything happening, right? I don't see anything on the 15. I go to the 5 minute, and then what I noticed is that price respected this, created a potential double top here as a reversal, but this is not a setup. I don't trade double top, so I just continue waiting. And then what I noticed is that price created another QMR, right? So this is the QMR. So high, low, higher high, lower low. As soon as I saw it here, right? As soon as I saw price here, that's where I set the PO at that level. So now this becomes my plan A. So this is plan A, and then this level up here is plan B, right? So I have plan A now and plan B, But originally, this was plan A, and then this never existed, right? So that's what happens. That's why you have to pay attention to price and see what price is doing. That's why I wait for 8 o'clock candle to close, and then see if anything happened during that time. I'm flicking through time frames, right? I'm flicking through, and I'm just watching and seeing if there's anything happening. So that's basically what happened on Thursday. Friday was CMP. CMP, NFP. So Friday's a no-go. I'm not going to bother explaining it because I'll never trade NFP.